Casting staff or directors in general, how awkward is it to hire people for unattractive characters, as in, their whole role is being fat or ugly? I've been a professional actor for over 20 years and I can say, not awkward at all. If you have an interesting look and you signed up for and showed up for a casting, you know the deal. Ugly actors aren't less smart or self-aware than good-looking ones. For example, little people or dwarves, they get into acting knowing they will more likely be an elf in a Christmas special than end up like Peter Dinklage, but they want to act regardless. Bottom line, we are all too needy and self-obsessed to feel awkward, even the ugly ones. Story 2. I spent a few years in LA going to auditions. Some of the roles I got cast in include overweight jogger, fat guy with beard, and guy waiting in line for donuts, which was actually not specifically a fat guy audition, more a hipster, which was also a lot of the roles I went out for. It wasn't that awkward, and I got to know a lot of dudes who kinda look like me just from seeing them at the same auditions. Most awkward audition was for a Polish tire commercial where I had to be topless. Story 3. I work at a theater school. The acting students are typically striking looking in some way. Strikingly beautiful, strikingly gaunt, strikingly unsettling, strikingly kind. The fat students are usually a bit big, but also very strong and agile. The ugly students are ugly in an interesting and unique way, not merely less attractive than their peers, but positively more ugly. They're both the same distance from plane, but in different directions. This is usually a selling point for them, and they know it. Someone who looks fat and lazy but has the stamina to perform all day is an absolute prize. Someone whose selling point is his train wreck of a face knows exactly what he looks like, and in conjunction with his performance skills, has a very sellable product. Remember that most roles have an audition process. You subscribe to or ask your agent to keep an eye out for roles you are confident you can play. Most actors aren't after Juliet or a Hamlet. They're after roles that fit their description and skill set. Short, plump, ginger-haired woman with a maternal smile in her late 40s is a role certain actors will find and send in a headshot for, just like Hispanic, unattractive, 50-plus, overweight man, lazy eye or missing teeth desirable will catch the eye of others. You apply for the roles. Professional actors are confident self-starters after a job that pays, that gets them seen, that lets them show off their range, so as to continue building their career. As someone who went through theater school, is it a bad sign that I don't know what I fall into? I didn't really think about it all that much. Story 4. I've thought about this a lot, especially with kids. The little girl in Desperate Housewives who is the fat kid, Eva Longorius's character's kid, pretty sure that was her storyline. But how does a small child grow up with self-esteem when what she is known for is being the fat kid on that TV show? Story 5. Not quite the same thing, but I saw an advert where they were looking to film in a bedsit, so I got in contact and the location scout came around to see my place. The film was the low-budget drugs drama London to Brighton, and they wanted a bedsit for where the two lead characters lived, who were both addicts and living in abject misery without a penny to their name. They didn't use my place in the end, but the location scout did say, "It was almost perfect. The only problem is that it's too small," which made me feel really great about where I lived back then, I can tell ya. Story 6. I knew a male actor, haven't seen him in years though, who was always typecast for certain character roles because of his distinctive looks. He's had a pretty successful career, but when he told me about his work and different roles, I couldn't help but notice that he carried a certain sadness about not being the heroic figure everybody loves. He had come to terms with his predicament. Him being an actor was in part a reaction against being an outcast and being bullied, but there was still a longing to be beautiful, loved, and admired. Story 7. Former casting director in Hollywood for 13 years. HBO, Netflix, and every major network plus some international commercials. It's not awkward at all. It's a business like any other business, and every role has a place and is extremely important. The actors all know that. I've never had a single actor not really want a part. They all know that any role can be huge career boosters at any level. So be it for commercials, music videos, TV shows, or film, all of which I cast, they were 1. Stoked on the money, and 2. Knew it could be a great opportunity to do what they loved, make great connections on set, leading to more roles, and taking their career to the next level. I'll add that the breakdown for a role, aka Hollywood term for a job listing, never says ugly. Like every business, Hollywood has its own vocabulary, and as others have pointed out, Hollywood ugly is not everyday life ugly. If you think about it, any ugly actor has some really specific character traits that make them who they are. Funny, charming, devious, conniving. So the actor needs to have those and act them well. In other words, it's rare necessarily just about their looks. A role might be listed as age 50 to 60, character actor, quirky, fun-loving, a whole lot of other descriptors, along with a 3-line summary of key traits and context. All professional actors know what that means, and all that audition are there because they want to be. It isn't a bait and switch, and there are no surprises. Overwhelmingly, almost all of the actors I've cast were an absolute joy to work with. A solid 98%. Only about 2% were not. Some of those you've seen in the press. And they would absolutely come back for repeat roles even if they were character roles. I always treated every cast member with great kindness and respect, regardless of how they looked, because I knew the value that each one brought. I was always very grateful for their hard work because they made the whole project come together, and that made everyone happy. Also, casting directors are rooting for their cast to kick butt. We get just as excited behind the scenes to see them crush a role as they are to play the role. This means all actors, young, old, pretty, or character, were stoked equally for each one's success. Adding a Hollywood ugly fun fact, typically where networks draw the line is teeth. That's right, it's kind of a known joke. NBC, ABC, you name it. A person could be missing a limb, hair, appendages, not a problem, just as long as they have all their teeth. That's where they draw the line. It would appear that for Americans at least, it's the one thing that makes people actually change the channel. Edit. Adding a response about kids. Per the question above regarding casting the unattractive kid, in short, I never cast roles like that because I simply couldn't on a moral or conscience level. Parents of kid actors are often, just unique or difficult. Think stage mom who wants their kid to be famous. So I already have my own views on all that. I don't want to contribute to the problem. During my time in the biz, I only cast a couple of projects with kids in them, and I only chose things that were super fun, encouraging, and that the kid would have a blast filming and be proud of. Music video I cast, The Little Girl, So Good to Me by Chris Malinchak, because who wouldn't love playing with a giraffe all day for a day and make money? It was super fun. Unrelated, but it's nice to hear a casting director be like, yeah, the whole casting kids thing is weird to me. I don't do it unless I know they'll love it, because yeesh, Hollywood and exploitation of kids kind of goes hand in hand, which is awful. Good on you for standing up for something in the show business, OP. Not a lot of people do it. Story 8. To actually answer the question that nobody has directly, not awkward at all. People will absolutely jump at the chance to be the ugly one. They don't really care. It might be awkward mentally for them, maybe, but it's nothing personal and they know it. Just another job opportunity. Like a classic meme goes, if someone paid you $200 but had to call you ugly, would you take it? Of course, I'm ugly, not stupid. Edit. For what it's worth, too, I think a main point is that it's an audition for the role of an ugly person. It doesn't mean that you are dreadfully ugly. Just like how British people in movies aren't required to be played by Brits. Story 9. There's a model agency in London called Ugly. I imagine everyone involved knows what's up. More generally, by the time they leave acting school, most actors will have figured out whether they're going to be playing Juliet. Fat people know they're fat. They move forward, or not, on that basis. I imagine it's a bit like playing bad guys. You want to tell the stories, so you play the role that the stories demand. In some cases, an attractive person will be made ugly using makeup and/or prosthetics. If you have to, you could do the same with an ugly person to save their self-esteem. Story 10. I remember that when I was a kid, I was always so offended that I'd been cast as the ugly or funny roles. The old lady pirate in Pirates of Penzance, or the funny sidekick, the one who couldn't sing in a chorus line. But then I became a drama teacher and started casting kids in roles, and I realized, from the POV of the teacher, you only gave the ugly or funny roles to the genuinely talented kids, the ones you knew could pull it off. It's a lot easier to play an attractive or romantic lead than it is to play a goblin or she-witch or troll. So, now I remember that the kids cast as the ugly one are probably going to be upset that they didn't get the romantic lead with the sweeping ballad, and I try to reassure them that they got the part not because they can't play the romantic lead, but that no one else was good enough to play their part. Story 11. So I was in a Christopher Columbus play in 4th grade, and I desperately wanted to play Queen Isabella. I memorized all her lines, practiced acting them out in different tones to see what felt right, had my mom read through with me several times, and then audition day came, and I scanned the cast list the next day, heart leaping when I saw my name, except it wasn't next to Queen Isabella. They had cast me, a girl with waist-length brown hair and chubby chipmunk cheeks, as Christopher Columbus. At first, I was crushed and thought the teacher was making fun of me, but then she explained that I was the only one she thought could remember all the lines, since that part had the most and Queen Isabella only had a few. So I ended up deciding to just have fun with it. My mom and I handmade a costume. We pinned all my hair up under a cap and drew on 5 o'clock shadow with eyeliner. I did memorize every single line, and even hammed up a few of them during the second performance. It actually turned out to be one of my most wholesome and fun childhood memories, and increased my confidence for public speaking a lot. Story 12. This made me think of an interview I once saw with Dustin Hoffman when he played a woman in Tootsie. They put the makeup on him and he said, "Wait, you aren't done. You need to make me beautiful." And the makeup artist said, "This is as much as we can do." And he started to cry, because for the first time he felt such pain out there for women and people who weren't attractive, and there was almost nothing they could do about it. I gotta be so real, I don't remember what Dustin Hoffman sounds like. I did it my best. Not that I think I could sound like him anyway. This is a weird story though, right? Just like a dude being like, "Oh, I feel so bad for those who aren't as beautiful as I am." What? Unless I'm totally reading it wrong. Story 13. I've made a few indie or low-budget films, acted in more than a few, and have had a hand assisting on crew. For the process I've witnessed, those in charge were pretty straightforward with everything as far as what the role was. Example, the first role I was ever cast in was for a smaller part in an indie slasher. I was told I looked like a smarmy male private part, and once I started acting the part, they cast me immediately. This is nothing new for me. For whatever reason, I always look like I'm brooding or glaring. I guess it's the guy version of RBF. They didn't mean it in a bad way either. When they talked about my look, it was all for the sake of the camera. And when they got to know me, they learned quickly I'm very easy to get along with. What's more, talent plus that certain look brought in quite a few inquiries for availability to play villains, bullies, corporate shills, and etc. It ain't much, but it's honest work. The same can be said about other roles. If a role needed a bigger person, once the casting crew found their candidates, they were straightforward in letting them know what the role was. Of course, they were respectful, but transparency and respect were key, so that everyone felt comfortable on set, and especially if those characteristics became the butt of a joke. To be frank, though, I've never met an actor who was delusional with their appearance because they understood the camera is objective. This isn't to say they don't exist, but that's my experience. Story 14. I heard they make contracts with fat actors/actresses to stay fat, like Rebel Wilson. Apparently they only hired her for the role to be the fat, funny friend, but now that she lost weight, she can't play those roles. I always thought she looked beautiful, fat or skinny, but it's not right to not let a person lose weight just for a movie contract. But then again, actors or actresses are out in weird diets and exercising regimens for movies, so... Story 15. Somewhat related. I dated a guy I thought was stunning. Seriously, he was an 8 just getting out of bed in the morning. He was an aspiring actor. Problem was, he was Arabic. Dark skin, nearly black eyes, wavy black hair. He knew he would often get typecast into certain roles, many of which would be unflattering, such as terrorist nutjob. He knew it, but he was excited about it anyway, because he wanted paydays and he loved acting. I imagine it's similar for people getting cast in conventionally unattractive roles. Sorry, OP, but the phrase, "problem was, he was Arabic," is crazy taken out of context. That was like the first thing I read in the story, and I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. What is being said here? Story 16. Wore my eye patch to a casting call that was requesting facial deformities or other injuries. A woman came up to me and asked what was under the patch. When I showed her there was, in fact, no eye, I got to jump ahead in line. Cast as a messed up soldier extra in a Revolutionary War show. Had smallpox one day, lay in the infirmary the next, stuck in the mud another day. Pretty good food and money. Neat experience. All that to say, no one has an iota of shame. Own that crap. Story 17. During middle school, we did Mulan, and I played as some guy in the beginning that Mulan was forced to marry. My drama teacher didn't tell me this, but in the script, Mulan literally said, "Ew, I don't want to marry him, he's ugly." As you can imagine, that was a massive blow to my self-esteem, especially in middle school when there's puberty and hormones. But looking back, I wonder what my drama teacher would say if she saw me now. Narrator's commentary. I'm sorry, Opie, do you want to prove to your drama teacher that you're now attractive? An interesting goal, but hey, you get him. Story 18. My friend is a director and she gave me a response I think you guys would like to know. She specializes in theater plays. If there's an actor needed for the play that is seen as not conventionally attractive, the crew has an interesting approach. They let the person they're hiring know that the character they'll be playing is very unattractive, so they'll do a lot of stuff to their makeup and hair, etc. A conversation would go like this. We need to ruffle your hair and use a bunch of off-putting makeup that will change your face shape. It's going to be so difficult to make you unattractive, but we will need to use a lot of product. Story 19. As a talent rep, most actors are self-aware enough to know their type and how Hollywood perceives them. Weirdly enough, it's the pretty ones that have issues, not the character type actors. Most character actors really like being character actors because they get the fun roles. They enjoy uglifying themselves for auditions. Whenever my roommate, who's older, plump, and average-looking by Hollywood standards, gets an audition that requires someone ugly or fat, she enjoys it. She's like, awesome, I don't have to shower or wear makeup today, and I get to let it all hang out. For the most part, character actors really don't take the descriptions personally. Story 20. I've done casting for clinical trial training videos, so I need very specific types with various disorders, including acting with mental health problems or having obesity. For the over 30 BMI role, I knew a musician friend who fit the bill. It was awkward for me to be honest. I thought he'd be great in general, but also toward the end of conversation, I said that this role requires a high BMI, and he laughed and said, don't worry, I'm still fat. I did my best to be polite. I mean, to be fair, his stage name has big in it. For Tourette's, that's a bit sensitive as well. I needed a child actor too. So I ask at my local children's theater and the director recommends one boy who is a phenomenal actor and singer and mentions even that he does have a head tick. He sounds absolutely perfect, even just as an actor without a tick. I call his mom and she seems happy to have him act for us. When I mention the role is for a kid with Tourette's, she shuts me down, doesn't want to be contacted. I hired a girl we often use, but she couldn't play a tick to save her life. It made me sad because these are training videos for clinical investigators, and I wish that boy and his mom could have felt a little more proud of being properly represented. He really was a great actor and singer who just happened to have Tourette's. That is a bit sad, actually. It's hard to give proper representation of these sorts of roles when they don't want to do them. And I want to know if the kid was consulted or if it was entirely the mom taking over. At least the mom should have asked, what's it for? I'm sure being told, it's a training video for medical professionals, this is important work, she would have agreed. But because she asked no questions, just assumed it was a really gross typecast, I guess? I don't know. Strange. Kid, you gotta find a new agent. Story 21. To be honest, as a professional actor, it's so much easier to get roles if you have an interesting look. Some call it ugly, but it's basically a face you, or a casting director looking at hundreds of people every day, will remember. Good example would be that new actress who played the main role in Queen's Gambit, or the classic Benedict Cumberbatch. They weren't typecast as ugly even though their look is not mainstream of beauty. It's also worth remembering it's possible to make an average-looking human either ugly or drop-dead gorgeous just with makeup. And if you're filming something, you have a whole team of people making sure you glow. There's plenty of naturally good-looking actors, and some of the prettiest women I know have the hardest time finding roles. There are hundreds of other gorgeous, white, blue-eyed brunettes with long hair. They don't stand out from the crowd at all. Meanwhile, I have a rather specific look, and often get auditions of very niche characters. I'm one of 20 people they could find in all of the UK that match that sort of brief. Not to mention, if you go on an agent's website, they usually send all their pretty women in 20s castings with a portfolio of 10+ clients, including me, even if I have a different look. But if they have a woman with short hair or black nerdy boy, they'll often only have one person matching the call in their books. Yeah, unique looks are definitely good for business, especially if you have the talent to back them up, obviously. I liked what people said earlier in the thread. It's sure, you're not going to play Juliet. You might not play Hamlet, but there are plenty of roles for you to play, and they're often more interesting or fun because, hey, take it from me, Hamlet, love it. Favorite Shakespeare play. The role itself is not, too interesting. But that's just one example, obviously. You can have interesting characters who are conventionally attractive, but oftentimes I find they're actually not. Anyway, that's the last story for today. I'd like to thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day or night wherever you are, and I will see you in the next one.